But before we get into our first audience question, just to set the plate here a little bit, the big picture, according to Gallup 2026, roughly 40% of employees worldwide say they experience a lot of stress during the previous day. And that was from a Gallup State of the Global Workplace 2026 report. A figure that hasn't really changed much as we think about the pre-pandemic levels for a number of years. And U.S. Has some of the highest daily stress rates amongst all the regions at 50%, really unchanged from previous years as well. So, what do you think, Dr. Cheryl, Dr. Loretta? Is stress real?
It's very
Yes.
real.
Absolutely. Very real. So I just wanted to offer you a big picture in terms of what leaders deal with in terms of stress as part of that process. Continue to send in those leadership questions, feedback. We love it all. And we read them, we chump it up, we talk about it amongst ourselves. Again, continue to send those questions in, comments, topics you might want to explore, leadership matters, questions at innovisions.org. And so we'll put that up later on so folks can get the right spelling of each of those words so you can tap into that as well. So let's get to our first audience question. And this one is from a nonprofit executive in the Midwest, I believe this question's coming from. Here they are. I lead a small team, and honestly, there's no one to delegate to. Everyone tells me to set boundaries, take time off, but the work doesn't stop when I do. How do I manage stress when stepping away simply isn't an option? Very good question. Very good question. Dr. Loretta and Dr. Cheryl, one of you want to chime in on that one? What do you think?
Okay, I'll start. It is really a good question, and I have to think of what do I do when I really can't step away from something. But last week, our guest, Jacqueline Manley, she says something and it made me really think. And I realized I do some of those things. She called it taking your meds, meditation, exercise, a healthy diet, and sleep. And I realized I believe in all of those. I do start my day with a meditation or a prayer. And I try to exercise at least 5 times a week for 30 minutes a day. And that's the beginning of my day. And that really does help me. And well, I've started eating healthier, let me say that. I still have my things that are a treat for me. And sleep, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my sleep. So, but when she said that, it was like, oh, am I doing those? And I realized I was. So I loved it when Jacqueline Manley said that last week about taking your meds. That really stuck with me. So, and I do try to do that. And it helps me when I know I can't step away and there are things I have to do. But just starting off the day like that really does help me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. She was great with her insight last
Yes.
week. Very
Yeah.
powerful. Dr. Cheryl, how about you?
I absolutely love the Mets as well. And I know that there is an author, I want to say his name is Simon Bailey. He goes into more detail on that. And so absolutely agree with Dr. Loretta that and Jacqueline Manley that being intentional about getting our meds is real important. Meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep.
Yeah.
I think from this caller's perspective with regards to, Andre, could you read that question again?
The question came from, again, a small executive in the Midwest. She leads a small team, and honestly, there's no place to delegate to. Everyone tells me to set boundaries and take time off, but the work doesn't stop when I do. How do I manage stress when stepping away simply isn't an option?
So I think such a realistic question. I think
Hmm.
that so
Absolutely.
many of us find ourselves in spaces where I'm like, who do I delegate this to? And I think there's always this assumption that there's excess time someplace that we're just not leveraging, or a resource or individual we're just not leveraging. And that may not always be the case. And so prioritizing becomes real important in those moments, and saying, recognizing that capacity is limited. And sometimes we're working at a pace that's not necessarily sustainable. And we do have to step back and say, not that something is not important. Everything will be important, but we still need to prioritize things and say, based on priorities, what might I or uh, how might I create a path forward, starting with what might be most important to prioritize. And I think also just assessing where might we have become a bottleneck. Are there some things that are on our plate and we haven't delegated them because we don't think others could do it as well as we do it or put the special touch on it? So, do I need to delegate? And I can't remember who the author was that talks about delegate, but that's developing others so that we can. We might have a resource that if we develop them a little bit more, we might be less of a bottleneck and be able to delegate not just tasks, but projects, because we've spent enough time developing someone's expertise and thinking around some things. And then going back to what Dr. Loretta said, maybe we can't take a week off, but we can look for those breaks in between, making sure that I put however much time we need in between meetings so they're not flush. So maybe it's that 5 minute break where I take a mindful minute and do a meditation or just do some deep breathing or going for a walk or having a real lunch break where we literally stop because just like stress accumulates, those rest moments can also accumulate and help make a positive difference in our ability to sustain ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
Agree.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think one thing that I learned years ago in leadership roles is stop trying to delegate tasks. Instead, delegate decisions, right? Even on small teams, there are choices you're making that someone else could own with guardrails. So I think for leaders, sometimes we think we have to own it all, and the weight becomes heavier because we think we have to own it all. And again, good leaders are folks who certainly can identify other folks who may be part of a small team, large team, medium-sized team to say, let me delegate decision-making processes and give it to someone else and trust them. And of course, put guardrails in place of that too. So I think that also is another mental shift that the leaders need to make. Instead of trying to delegate stuff, task, delegate decision-making processes and power. And I think that becomes a true game changer as well. So, yeah, great.
Can I just add one
Please,
thing to what you said?
yeah,
It just
please.
made me think there are leaders who will do that delegation, and I love that delegate. That really works for me. But the leader then really needs to let that go. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you'll make sure that the person has everything that they need. That's part of the development part, as Dr. White was talking about. But you can't just be like hovering over people all the time. It's like, then you really didn't let it go or give them a chance to make those decisions. So sometimes we do have to determine, yes, you train someone, you develop them so that they can do that. So I agree.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Great. Dr. Loretta, are you that leader?
I'm a firm believer
Okay.
in developing people. I do that throughout my career in organizational development and effectiveness. That was the part of HR I loved, helping people identify potential. Sometimes you can see it in them when they don't see it in themselves, but you actually have to give them a chance and give them tools. And if they make a mistake, you're not going to like fuss and have a rant about it. We've all made mistakes, but you work with them. What lesson did we learn from that mistake? But I'm a true believer in allowing people to just flourish and develop and see their own potential. Sometimes they don't, and you see it in them.
Absolutely. Dr.
I
Shay, how about
delegate
you?
to you, don't I?
All the time. And I delegate back. So that's how it works. That's how it works. Reciprocity.
Yeah.
Dr. Sher, you that leader as well?
Uh,
Delegation of task versus delegation.
Well, I will delegate a project, and there are times when I need to pull myself out
Okay.
and do a better job of, like you said, Dr. Dre, putting those guardrails up
Yeah,
and then allowing people to run within those guardrails.
it's really important. So
Yeah.
great. All right. Well, we got to get into a discussion